Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Joe Talks Politics. I am your host, Joseph Musia. It took over a month, but South Africa finally has a government. This follows the swearing in of the new executive on Wednesday. In this episode, I look at the swearing in ceremony, problems in Gauteng, and the lighter side of things. Let's get right into it. The new ministers and deputies have a huge task ahead of them. The outcome of the May elections means 30 years of ANC rule is now over, and the 10 parties of the GNU must now deliver on their promises. There is no doubt that there are serious tensions among the parties, especially the ANC and the DA. It is also clear that there are elements in both parties who are still working to scupper their cooperation. There are still those who regard the other side as enemies instead of partners with whom they need to work for the good of the country. This has become more pronounced in Gauteng, where the DA has resolved to stay out of the cabinet. Reports say President Cyril Ramaphosa had to stop the announcement of the provincial cabinet on Sunday as it did not make enough provision for other parties. That intervention does not seem to have borne fruit as the parties remain deadlocked. The ANC has chosen to go ahead and announce a provincial cabinet that does not include the DA. Just like the ANC, the DA has elements who are uncomfortable working with the ANC and will breathe a sigh of relief if the GNU fails. Ramaphosa has allocated his party 63% of ministerial positions in the national cabinet. This is not representative of the 40% the party obtained in the elections. It is a clear case of a power grab by a party the voters have largely rejected. The DA obtained almost 22% of the national votes. It only has 6 positions, or just under 19%. One can understand, therefore, why the DA refused to accept 3 cabinet positions in Gauteng against the ANC's 7. Considering that the provincial cabinet is limited to only 10 MECs, 7 MECs is 70% of the provincial cabinet. How do they arrive at that figure? Being the larger party, it would have been reasonable if the ANC had allocated 4 positions to itself, 3 to the DA and 3 to the remaining coalition partners. So whether the DA is part of the provincial cabinet or not, the ANC has too many MECs in that province. I caught up with DA leader John Steenhuisen at the swearing-in ceremony, and we spoke about their position on and expectations of the GNU. He also explained their posture to the Gauteng situation. The GNU, are you satisfied that at the level of agreement that you have with the ANC now, is there sufficient agreement on what the way forward is?
Yes, I think so. Look, there's still things that have to be ironed out around how we deal with potential deadlocks in the cabinet, and we intend to deal with the president on that in the next week. But I think that generally I'm very happy where we're at. I'm happy with the portfolios the DA got. And I'm very hopeful that we can use these portfolios now to make a difference to the people of South Africa.
I get a sense that there are some people on both sides, through their public statements, that seem to be not wanting this government of national unity to work. I won't name people, but I have a sense that not everybody in both parties, ANC and the DA, are making statements that are inflammatory that can end up. How long do you give the GNU? Some people give it 2 months.
No, I give it a lot more than that. I mean, we certainly wouldn't have gone into something that would collapse at the first hurdle. And I think there's going to have to be a lot of maturity and consensus and finding each other, and an understanding from particularly the ANC and between the ANC and the DA that this is not a co-option, it is collaboration and cooperation, and that we are here to do things and to make a difference. We're not going to here to dance to the ANC's tune. The people of South Africa decided that no party would have a majority, and they've forced us to the situation where we've had to sit and make a deal, and I think it's a good deal. And yes, of course, there are people in all parties who have different views and opinions, but the overwhelming majority of my FedEx and federal executive and federal council that we took this through approved the deal and approved of us continuing with the negotiations. So I'm very confident that, apart from one or two people who may have their nose out of joint and have a different view, as they're entitled to in a democratic party and democratic organisation, but I think the overwhelming majority of the DA understood that when we put up those posters that said "Rescue South Africa," well, we need to do that, and when we're given an opportunity to rescue South Africa, we must take it.
And ministers that are from the DA that are part of the GNU, the 6 ministers, including yourself, is your understanding as the DA that they are DA ministers, or are they are ministers appointed by the president?
No, they are ministers appointed in terms of the constitution, and they form part of the cabinet, and they are ministers first, and they happen to come from different parties, but that's how coalition governments work all over the world. This is not something new. It's the norm in large parts of Europe and South America and other parts of the world that you have these coalitions. You have different parties represented there, but the minister's first responsibility is to the people of South Africa and to their constitutional obligations, and that's as it will be. But they come from the DA, but they serve the people of South Africa, just as ANC people come from the ANC, but their job is to serve the people of South Africa, and that's how it must be.
Are you able to say briefly what the issue is that is holding off the announcement of the government in Gauteng?
Yes, it's the inability of the ANC at a provincial level in Gauteng to come to terms with the fact that there is an election outcome, and that election outcome needs to be reflected in a new government. Where the ANC were not the largest party in KwaZulu-Natal, they demanded proportionality in the seats that they were given in the cabinet. What the DA is doing is saying there's only 6 or 7% that separates the DA and the ANC in Gauteng. You can't take 7 out of the 10 cabinet seats with an election outcome like that. It's not a fair reflection on the will of the people. We want the IFP brought in, and then we want a fair sharing, as we did in KZN and as we've done at a national level, of the posts. And it's not about the positions. It's about being able to deliver when you're in government. And I've said very clearly, we can only go in to government where we can make a difference. Otherwise, if the ANC doesn't want to do a deal with us in Gauteng, they can form a minority government. We will become the official opposition there and hold that government to account. But good luck to them in getting budgets passed. Good luck to them when they've got to get legislation passed. And maybe they should go and speak to some of their colleagues in Johannesburg and Ekurhuleni and Nelson Mandela Bay and eThekwini to find out how difficult it is to actually run something where you don't have your own majority. The DA is very keen to go in there, but it can only go in on a fair basis and on a basis where we can actually make a difference.
Is the disagreement likely to impact anything on the national level?
I don't think so. I mean, we've got a different configuration in the Northern Cape. There's a different configuration in KwaZulu-Natal. If Gauteng chooses to go it on their own, as I say, they're going to run the gauntlet then of having to make every item on the order paper a negotiation. I don't think that's a nice way to govern. And so if they think they're going to be saying goodbye to the DA by ending the negotiation with us, well, they're in for a shock, because every order paper item will now become a negotiation. Because whether you like it or not, the electoral maths, the will of the people, has given the DA a large vote share in Gauteng. And we will make sure that we use it in that legislature in the interest of the people there, and to make sure that good governance prevails.
South Africa cannot afford dysfunction in Gauteng, its economic hub. So one hopes the parties will soon find each other and that the situation will be resolved. Back to the swearing in of national ministers and deputies designate. These events are usually serious affairs where those being sworn in seem scared to put a foot wrong. This time, however, the mood was rather jovial and light-hearted. President Ramaphosa joined in the spirit of the day. Steenhuisen has been the butt of jokes, especially from ANC members, since it became known that he had not studied further than matric. It was in this context that the room burst out in laughter when Ramaphosa announced his name.
Dr. Leon Amos Schreider, Dr. John Henry Steenhuisen. Did I say doctor or Mr.?
Congratulations, Minister. Thank you.
Chief Justice, as the apex officer of the court, would you confirm the honorary doctorate that was conferred on me by the President of the Republic of South Africa?
The only problem is that the president is not the university.
What about Mineral Resources Minister Gwede Mantashe's slip of the tongue?
And I undertake to hold my office as minister with honor and dignity, to be a true and faithful counsellor, not to divulge directly or indirectly.
Congratulations, Minister. Thank you. So, Mr. President, if there are any leaks, you will know.
There was also former ANC Chief Whip and new Water and Sanitation Minister Phemi Majodina. She was tripped by a rather long English word.
Not to divulge directly or indirectly any secret matter entrusted to me, and to perform the functions of my office conscientiously, and to the best of my ability. Conscientiously.
We'll get it right. We'll get it right. We'll get it right. Conscientiously.
Conscientiously.
Yes.
Conscientiously.
But this quip from the new Sports Minister and Patriotic Alliance leader Gauteng Mackenzie took the cake, and Chief Justice Raymond Zondo could not stop laughing.
And to perform the functions of my office conscientiously and to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
Thank
you. Take a seat.
The last time a judge asked me to sit, he made me sit for 10 years.
That was a long time.
The new ministers and their deputies now have the enormous task of making South Africa work. It is up to them to deal with the rising levels of poverty and unemployment, escalating crime, a stubbornly sluggish economy, and an increasingly impatient population. If you enjoyed this episode, please like it, share it, and hit the subscribe button. See you in the next one.